Yo, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to my corner of the world. We are here for some reactions to, WWE moments. This video is 1,000+ aura moments in WWE. It was uploaded by Wrestle Mafia. If I failed to mention it, that's my fault. But if you don't know by now, I am a pro wrestling fan. I have been for pretty much all of my life. And at the time that I am recording this, John Cena had his final match last night and retired. I grew up with John Cena, like watching him. He was my hero, and now it is truly the end of an era. But I wanted to dip my toes into the wrestling reaction waters just to test it out, see how it goes. And this video seemed like a good way to start because there are some cold moments in WWE that definitely gave people some aura. So let's dive in and see some of these moments right here, shall we? Links to the original video will be in the description if you want to check it out on your own. Let's run this up.
From entrances that gave you chills to returns that broke the internet, these are WWE moments that had maximum aura. At ECW One Night Stand 2006, John Cena was public enemy #1,
Yeah,
and the second Cena's music hit, the entire arena erupted in one of the most hostile reactions in WWE history. But despite the crowd reaction, Cena raised the WWE title, kept his head down, and walked down the ramp looking like the main character.
Yeah.
Most wrestlers would have looked shook, but Cena turned that nuclear heat into pure main event energy. That entrance proved why Cena was the guy in the WWE at the time, because anyone can get cheered. But it takes someone special to walk into hell and act like they own the place. But speaking of prime Cena...
And like, that's the thing, right? Like, you can always say there will never be another this person. There will never be another that person, which is true because every person is unique. But it takes a rare breed of person to be able to walk into an environment like that, knowing that everybody in attendance hates you and still kind of like brush it off and channel that energy into fuel for getting the job done. And Cena was one of those people. He really was. Cena was truly one of those people. He channeled all that hate that he got from all those people saying like you can't wrestle or Cena sucks or like wanted Super Cena to lose and blah blah blah. All of that, he channeled all of it and turned it into passion, and I loved it. I loved watching it.
Special to walk into hell and act like they own the place. But speaking of prime Cena's aura, let's talk about the night Super Cena got destroyed. For years, John Cena overcame the odds every single time. No matter who he faced, no matter the obstacles, Cena always found a way to win. But then came SummerSlam 2014, and Brock Lesnar completely shattered that Super Cena in minutes in what felt less like a wrestling match and more like a public execution. Lesnar hit Cena with 16 German suplexes, and each one made Cena look more human than he'd looked in a decade. The crowd went from shocked to absolutely silent because nobody expected to see Cena get dominated like this. Lesnar had already shaken the WWE Universe that year at WrestleMania when he conquered Undertaker's streak, but the Beast's aura at SummerSlam 2014 was completely off the charts. But moving on from Lesnar's dominance, let's talk about the night when the Tribal Chief's aura was at its peak. Roman Reigns had been the Tribal Chief for over 1,300 days, but his WrestleMania 40 entrance was something else entirely. The presentation, the confidence, the presence, the way he carried himself down that ramp. This was a man who knew he was the final boss of WWE. When Roman raised the title and the entire stadium acknowledged him, the crowd knew they were watching greatness, even the ones who wanted to see him lose. Roman's aura during that walk was untouchable. But that wasn't the only time when Roman's aura was on a different level. During a steel cage...
I mean, to be fair, like he kind of gives off that vibe no matter what now. Because Roman is one of the few people... honestly, in like US based pro wrestling, I can't speak for like international companies and promotions and whatnot, but at least for the US based promotions, he is one of the few people within the business who does not need a title to be relevant. you know, like he's the one who makes the title. Like he is so far beyond holding a championship that just his mere presence his name, even his name is enough to get people to look. Like Roman Reigns is that guy, you know? He came a long way. Roman Reigns is that guy.
Match on Raw, Roman Reigns ran down the ramp to help his former Shield buddy, Dean Ambrose.
I've seen this.
In a moment that had everyone hitting the replay button like crazy, Roman grabbed a chair and threw it into the ring that landed absolutely perfectly. But even that moment pales in comparison to the time when Brock Lesnar threw a mic at Roman and the Tribal Chief caught it with impossible precision while winking at Lesnar. But speaking of impossible moments, how about the time Roman hit the most perfectly timed spear in WWE history during a tag match with Bray Wyatt versus the League of Nations on an episode of Raw in 2016? When it comes to aura in professional wrestling, very few can match the aura of The Undertaker at WrestleMania. True. Every year, the dead man would make Mania his yard and remind everyone why he was the most feared name in the business for decades. However, Taker's aura reached new heights during his entrance at WrestleMania 29, when the dead man arrived with smoke covering the stage, looking like he literally crawled out of hell to defend his streak. But if Taker's entrance was legendary, CM Punk created a moment that changed the entire wrestling industry. CM Punk walked into his hometown of Chicago at Money in the Bank 2011 as the hottest wrestler on the planet, and the reaction he got was absolutely nuclear. The second his music hit, the entire arena exploded, and Punk walked down that ramp like he was the Messiah. Chicago was ready to riot if Punk didn't win, and the energy was so electric you could feel it through the TV. When Punk finally hit the GTS on Cena and got the 3 count, the building erupted in a way WWE hadn't seen in years. Punk exiting through the crowd with the championship, blowing a kiss to Vince McMahon, is one of the most iconic images in wrestling history. The Summer of Punk wasn't just a storyline. It was a cultural moment that reminded everyone why we fell in love with wrestling in the first place. But speaking of cultural moments, let's talk about a stare down that transcended wrestling. Before the bell even rang at WrestleMania 18, The Rock and Hulk Hogan had a stare down that made the entire building lose its mind. These were the two biggest icons in wrestling history, standing face to face for the first time ever at Mania. And the Skydome in Toronto couldn't handle it.
This is when
the crowd was split down the middle, chanting Rocky and Hogan back and forth, and both guys just stood there soaking it in. Neither man moved, neither man blinked. They just let the moment breathe. This stare down lasted what felt like forever, and every second was pure aura. But speaking of The Rock, let's talk about his most iconic rival from the Attitude Era. Every time the glass shattered during the Attitude Era, the fans would lose their minds because Austin was about to kick some ass. But during the January 4th episode of Raw in 1999, when Mankind challenged The Rock for the WWF title, Austin's aura was on a whole another level. Vince and Rocky used every underhanded tactic in the book to get an advantage over Mankind, and their plan was working brilliantly. But then, out of nowhere, the glass shattered. Stone Cold Steve Austin marched down the ramp, and the crowd went absolutely crazy. Austin struck Rock with the chair and gave Mankind the win, in what many consider the night WWF officially killed WCW. But if we're talking about iconic moments with Max Aura, we gotta go all the way back to where it all started.
Like, that's actually so wild to me. That, like, even though Stone Cold's, you know, time to shine was before my time, like, before I even really got into pro wrestling, because I didn't really get into pro wrestling until I was like 5 or 6, and that would have been like in 06 or 07, and just like around there. So like, but like they talked about Stone Cold a lot in the 2000s, and I looked him up. You know, like I had access to a desktop computer in my home, and like I would look up Stone Cold just to see like different moments of his online and like different stories and stuff. And the more and more I found online, the more I fell in love with the guy. And then like they had these video games like come out for him, and I think it was like WWE 2K16. That was his, like, you know how for the 2K games they always have like that one person who's like the face of that game, right? Like they make that game all about them. I think his was 16 when they did his game, and I already knew like quite a bit about Stone Cold by then, but getting to actually like play through his career the way that you got to in that game, just he ascended to my number one seat after that. I love Stone Cold. So it's like so crazy to me that you can be such a huge fan of somebody before like they like when they weren't even like around during your time, you know? Pro wrestling really is a very interesting industry.
It's WrestleMania 3 in the Silverdome, and over 90,000 people are watching Hulk Hogan attempt the impossible. Hogan grabbed Andre and somehow lifted the giant off his feet before slamming him down in what became one of the most historic moments in the WWE.
Yeah,
the entire building
right
exploded.
there.
Little kids watching at home believed that anything was possible because Hogan just did the impossible right in front of them. Whether you loved Hogan or hated him, on that night, nobody was matching Hulk Hogan's aura. Even today,
True.
almost 40 years later, people still talk about the slam heard around the world. But switching gears from the golden era, let's talk about one of the most memorable returns in WWE history. John Cena had been out for months with a torn pectoral muscle, and everyone thought he'd be gone until WrestleMania at the earliest. Then the Royal Rumble hit number 30, the countdown started, and Madison Square Garden held its breath waiting to see who the final entrant would be. When Cena's music hit, the entire arena lost their minds.
Yeah.
Half the crowd was going crazy with excitement. The other half was shocked to see Cena recovered from a career-threatening injury in record time. Cena went on to win the Rumble that night and cemented himself as one of the toughest wrestlers in history for coming back that fast. But speaking of legendary returns, The Undertaker had a comeback that literally defied death. Kane buried The Undertaker alive at Survivor Series 2003, and everyone thought the dead man was gone for good. But then at WrestleMania 20, after months of disappearance, the gong hit, lightning struck, and The Undertaker returned as the dead man after spending months as the American Badass. Kane looked terrified, and rightfully so. Taker walked down that ramp looking like he literally came back from the dead to get revenge on his brother. The Druids, Paul Bearer walking out with the urn, all of it amplified the aura of the dead man and reminded everyone that this was still his yard. Speaking of Taker, one of his biggest aura moments is when his opponents think they have the match won, but Taker does his signature sit-up and reminds everyone that the dead man never dies. Shawn Michaels, however, tried to do the impossible when he challenged Taker's streak at WrestleMania 25.
Match.
But while HBK lost the match, his aura during the entrance was completely off the charts. At WrestleMania 25, HBK had to make an entrance worthy of what many called the greatest match ever. Dressed in all white, arms spread like he was ascending to heaven.
Like back then, I had watched this match like, I want to say at least 6 or 7 times. Like I was just a kid. Like it was like for a while it was on demand and you had to pay for it. Eventually it became free, but like initially you had to pay for it. And I had paid to watch it like 2 or 3 times. And this was before I knew that you actually had to pay. So like you can imagine the looks on my parents' faces when they found out. But like it was that good. Like the match was that good. Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker at Mania 25. It's just, it ascends like to this level of, you know, if there was a like a GOAT status for matches, that would be there. If there was a Mount Rushmore for matches, this would be up there. It was that good.
Rather than walking into a match, Mr. WrestleMania arrived in style, and the symbolism hit different. But speaking of entrances with max aura, you simply cannot forget Goldberg's entrance. Now, whether you love him or hate him, you gotta admit Goldberg had one of the sickest entrances in all of wrestling. He didn't need elaborate stages or set pieces. All he needed was smoke, sparks, and that iconic walk from the locker room. He'd march down surrounded by smoke and security guards, psyching himself up by headbutting the locker room door and storm to the ring like he was going to war. By the time Goldberg hit the ring, he'd already won the mental game. His opponents looked defeated before the bell even rang because that entrance made him look unstoppable. The streak, the jackhammer, the spear, everything about Goldberg's presentation screamed aura, and that entrance was the perfect introduction to destruction. But while Goldberg dominated WCW with his entrance, modern WWE created a moment that looked straight out of an action movie.
Shield.
During an episode of Raw in London, the Shield arrived to the arena via helicopter, looking like the biggest badasses on the planet. Roman, Seth, and Dean looked like absolute stars, and that entrance helped cement the Shield as one of the most dominant factions ever.
I remember watching that.
But moving on from the Shield's dominance, let's revisit the most spectacular RKO of all time. Randy Orton has hit thousands of RKOs in his career, but the one he hit on Evan Bourne during a random episode of Raw became the most replayed RKO in history. Evan Bourne went for his signature shooting star press, and Orton caught him mid-flight with an RKO that looked like it was CGI. The crowd lost their minds because nobody expected something like that on a regular Monday night. That RKO became an instant hit and has been used in every Randy Orton highlight package since 2011.
Yeah,
in fact,
dude.
People who don't even watch wrestling have seen that clip because it went that viral.
And like watching it as a kid, like back then, this was like Viper Randy Orton, like '09 prime evil Randy Orton. So for like getting Evan Bourne as this kind of like ultimate underdog figure in that match, you're like, oh my god, Evan Bourne's about to do it. He's actually about to win. He's gonna beat Randy right now. Just for Randy to slip, like to slide up and then just it took my breath away. I was freaking out when I watched that because I was in shock and awe and just like disappointed for Evan Bourne. I was feeling so many emotions watching that. It is truly a spectacular moment.
Speaking of iconic moments featuring Randy Orton, let's talk about the time Jeff Hardy hit a swanton bomb that shook the entire WWE universe.
I remember watching that
Jeff Hardy was already known for being absolutely fearless, but the night he hit a crazy swanton bomb on Randy Orton on an episode of Raw took things to another level. During the build to their match at the Royal Rumble, Randy had attacked Jeff's brother Matt, and the charismatic Enigma wanted revenge. Jeff climbed the side of the Raw stage, spread his arms in his signature pose, and launched himself through the air in one of the most iconic moments in Raw history.
Yep.
This moment perfectly captured why Jeff Hardy was one of the most over wrestlers of his generation, and Jeff's aura during his prime was simply untouchable. But while Jeff gave us high-flying chaos, Bray Wyatt gave us something that was legit scary. By 2019, Bray Wyatt had spent months floundering in the upper midcard. He'd feuded with names like Daniel Bryan, John Cena, and Roman Reigns, but whenever it mattered the most, the Eater of Worlds simply couldn't get the job done. His aura was fading, the mystique was vanishing, but then SummerSlam happened, and nobody was ready for what was about to happen. The lights went out, and when they came back on, the Fiend marched wearing that horrifying mask and carrying a lantern, looking like he crawled out of a nightmare. This wasn't the Bray Wyatt who cut spooky promos and lost every big match. This was something completely different, something terrifying, something that made grown adults uncomfortable. The Fiend moved in this unnatural way. He no-sold Finn's offense, and everything about his presentation was perfect. The mask, the entrance, the red lights, the way he moved, everything worked together.
And then having like that, sorry to cut him off, but like having that tank top and then showing the tattoos and then having the gloves, it's like this kind of like brawler vibe that like really tied it all together. This was a really dope look. Rest in peace, Bray. This was a really cool look.
Perfect. The mask, the entrance, the red lights, the way he moved, everything worked together to create one of the most unique characters in modern WWE. Bray Wyatt took all his creative ideas and turned them into pure nightmare fuel. But speaking of special debuts with Max Aura, let's go back to 1997 and talk about the most memorable debut in WWE history. It was Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, the first ever Hell in a Cell match, and everyone thought nothing could make this match more insane. But then the lights went off, flames shot up from the entrance, and Kane made his debut looking like a 7-foot monster straight from hell. The Big Red Machine marched to the ring, ripped the door completely off, and walked through it like it was made of paper. Undertaker's face said it all. Shock, fear, confusion, because his little brother that he thought was dead just showed up looking like a demon. Kane hit a tombstone on Undertaker, his own finishing move, and cost him the match. This was the introduction of one of the most iconic characters in wrestling history. Kane's mask, the fire, the destructive power, everything oozed aura. But years later, Kane had another entrance that proved he could still give you chills. When Kane unmasked in 2003 and went on his psychotic heel run, WWE had to bring him to the ring in handcuffs and chains because he was too dangerous to let loose. Security guards would surround him, and Kane would walk to the ring completely restrained, looking like Hannibal Lecter being escorted to interrogation. This unmasked Kane set Jim Ross on fire, electrocuted Shane McMahon, and even chokeslammed Eric Bischoff off the stage. This version of Kane was so unhinged that it made the OG masked version look tame in comparison. But speaking of OG, check out this video about 21 things only OG WWE fans will remember.
Oh God, I was not expecting that to be such a huge trip down memory lane. That was wild. Dude, there are so many moments there that just like hit some neurons in my brain and just like forced these memories to the surface watching this. This was cool. Yeah, this is the first of what I hope to be many reactions like this for the channel. Like, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. If you guys enjoyed my reaction to this and would like to see more reactions to pro wrestling stuff, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. See ya.